Sam, to get us started, give me two truths and a lie, please.
Okay, so number one, I am of actual relation to the baseball player Sammy Sosa.
Hmm?
Number two, first concert I ever went to was Britney Spears. And number three, I participated but did not win my elementary spelling bee.
Okay. You participated in in your elementary spelling bee, but did not win. Britney Spears was the first concert, and you are related to the great Sammy Sosa. Well, these are excellent. These are excellent. They're all certainly possible. I know very little about your spelling acumen, so you could have come a long way or stayed stuck exactly where you were. As I get older, I like Britney Spears more. Doesn't have anything to do with you.
Everything makes sense.
Right, yeah. So let's see. Okay, so the idea is that I guess. So I'm going to say that, yeah, Britney Spears was your first concert.
True. Yeah,
So that is true. So I have to guess the lie, though. So I do not think you're related to Sammy Sosa.
that is that is correct.
All
I'm
right.
not related, but I get asked all the time, and I'm like, man, what can I really like say to. But anyway, it was a long shot, but
No,
you got it.
these are awesome. I just completely guessed. So do you like Britney Spears? Are you ashamed or really happy that she was your first concert?
Oh man, ashamed? Definitely not. I still remember, I mean, to this day, like I don't even remember how I ended up at that concert. I must have been a huge fan. I know my sister took me and I mean, like all, young boys who idolize, a world famous pop star, went and got an Old Navy outfit, fresh cargo shorts,
Let's go.
everything. I was ready. I was like, I was convinced she was going to see me all the way at the top and be like, Sam Sosa, come down here right now. Anyway, it didn't happen because I'm in property tax. But who knows? Maybe in another life.
Yeah. Yeah. Life's a funny thing. Tell me about the spelling bee.
Yes, I actually don't even remember how I got there or like how they qualify, but I made it. And I only actually made it a couple rounds. I'm trying to remember the word that actually got me knocked out. I want to say it was like Sue, like Sioux. It was
Mm.
something very basic, and it took me out, man. So no spelling bee champion for me.
Oh, well. I can remember having a real hard time with vacuum and probably canoe stuff, words like that. So Sue would have definitely gotten me.
Totally.
Oh, Britney Spears was your first concert. My first concert was James Brown.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
As
was a great show.
not because I grew up in a small town and we didn't
Yeah.
get too many acts coming through. And he came through when I was like 15 or 16. And so I went with some friends. It was awesome for sure. So
Dang. What a time.
what a time for sure, man. Well, well done. That was a good round. What is top of mind for you right now, Sam Sosa?
Um, well, I mean, as you know, I work in property tax and, I manage a large team who's in charge of several 100,000 appeals nationwide. And so, right now we had a lot going on in Florida, in California with recent appeal deadlines and just getting things squared away there. And then, the Texas season isn't supposed to drag on this long, but it does. And so we're still, we are very much, full steam ahead, all hands on deck. So property taxes is always really top of mind for me. And I love to open up the conversation about it just to build awareness and hope that at the end of the day, folks can feel empowered to whether or not they engage an agent or, DIY, that they just feel like they have the tools and resources to be able to do either which one. And so that's really what's top of mind for me right now.
Appreciate that. How old were you when you saw Britney Spears?
Man, I was in elementary. I must have been in. So I'm almost 32 now. Uh, so I must have been first or second grade actually.
All right.
It was before things went a little, off the
Yeah.
deep end there. But yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it was a great show nonetheless.
So you're like 7 or 8 years old, 6, 7 or 8 years old. Did you know
Probably.
then that you wanted to work in property tax?
It's like a running joke in the industry, right? Like nobody wakes up and says, "I want to be a property tax consultant." You kind of just like it's this strange misfit group of folks that kind of just stumbled into the industry and then ultimately ended up loving everything about it. I mean, like at the end of the day, man, like the what you're doing is helping people save money, and that is like probably the most rewarding thing of all. And so, like, especially here in Texas, property taxes is always a hot button issue, and it's one that's always talked about. And so, I think, luckily enough, the stars aligned, and I think I found my calling. I'm still here, a little over 10 years later. But yeah, I mean, nobody really wakes up and says, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, you never know, but that certainly would have been my guess. And I
Totally.
appreciate everything you say. I appreciate everything you said. Certainly, especially these days, money's tight for everybody, and when
Definitely.
we can find $1,000, I'd certainly be interested in having $1,000 versus not. Um, Property tax, I don't know, it's on the tip of everybody's tongue, but obviously in Florida they're talking about repealing property tax just in general, getting rid of it. And I know that property taxes in California that's like 1.25%. I don't know what it is in Texas, but that's
Mhm.
as property values go up, these are giant numbers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, property tax is ad valorem, right? So it's taxed on in relation to the value, which it's always going to change. And so it's one of the most. I think it's just one of those things that should be on top of everybody's minds, but isn't necessarily always. It's easy to kind of overlook it. Obviously, property tax isn't the most fun thing to talk about or to read about, but it impacts essentially all aspects of our lives, right? Property tax revenues are, fund school districts and police and EMS. And so like there's tons of ways that property taxes affect the lives of everyday folks, even down to their checkbook. And so it's definitely a relevant subject. And this year was we had a legislative session in Texas where they passed some more property tax relief that's set to be voted on in November. And so it's always top of mind for us, obviously, because I'm in the industry. But yeah, I really hope that at the end of this, folks just take away kind of like a sense of urgency to go out there and whether it be to listen to this podcast or just read more up on it on what they can do to help save themselves a couple bucks. That's the ultimate goal here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So, as long as real estate values are going up, the amount of property tax I pay is theoretically speaking going up. Is there a universal way that municipalities or whoever it is levying these taxes applies it? Or can they just single me out? How does that work?
I mean, property taxes are locally collected and distributed, and so ultimately, like it is up to the local jurisdictions to set those rates, and whether they come up, go down, stay the same. It's really up to the local folks, and so it actually really is tough to say with certain confidence that if the values keep going up, that the taxes will go up. I know it's a something that we've talked about heavily here, because what we see in Texas is you could have initiatives like compression, where they send money to the schools to keep the tax rates down. So homeowners see relief there. So theoretically, those tax bills aren't changing or they're going down. Whereas where there was no action from a local entity, they may see that tax portion go up. And so it's really tough to say whether they're going to go up or down. And obviously based on, what the legislator is looking to do and things like that. So it really does change every year. I mean, it's always top of mind for us here, not only because we do it, but because it just impacts the lives of so many folks.
It's such an obvious thing, but I think frequently overlooked. I certainly kind of lose sight of it and forget about it that each one of these municipalities, if it's the state, the city, whatever, they have to balance their books. It's not the federal government that can print more money. So
Totally.
if they say, okay, well, people are really upset that they're paying this much property taxes, we still need money for the schools and the fire departments. So we need to make this work and we need to be proactive about it. But that doesn't mean people are necessarily. I'm just hoping that they are.
Yeah. Yep. That's 1000% true. I mean, I really wish that folks could be more proactive. I mean, I know there's a large set of folks here, especially in Texas, that do protest even themselves every year. But it's easy to forget about. It's easy just to look at the notice and just kind of put it to the side and just say, you know what, okay, like money's going in escrow, it'll be paid, whatever. But it really does, like, when you think about the time that tax bills come due, we'll call it for Texas, that's like just after Christmas time, right? And it's like, what could you do if you got your value down and you can budget more money into your Christmas budget, right? To give some more gifts for the kiddos or things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of ways to be proactive. I know Onwell puts a lot of resources out there for folks who are, on the fence. Do you want to DIY? Here's what you can expect. Do you want to protest with an agent? Here's what you can expect. Here's what you can see from competitors. And so, I mean, we're in the information era, right? And so there's tons of stuff out there for folks to read and just get educated on. And at the very least, I mean, like I can share my LinkedIn or whatever, folks can reach out to me and I'd be happy to answer any questions they have. I'd like to be a resource at the very least for anybody that's interested.
And grateful for that. Understanding that these are handled at the local level, meaning
Mhm.
that it's all the process might be similar, but it's also going to be unique based on what's going on in that local area. Is there sort of a basic formula that they say, okay, real estate in this area has gone up by 1% this year, therefore your property taxes are going to be X, whatever the property tax rate is, we're now going to apply that on your property, which is now 1% more valuable? Or how does that process work?
It's tough to say or like estimate what each entity's needs are going to be each and every year, but I can say that, the county appraisal district is tasked with the job of valuing property as of the valuation date. In Texas, it's January. Actually, in most states or most territories, it is January 1. And so they'll look at the market date as of that date and then issue the value. They will open up the protest period to allow homeowners to, state their grievances, state the facts that they think it's overvalued. Then once that period closes, the assessor or the appraisal district will essentially take that role and then hand it to the entities, and then the entities will then determine what their needs are. And so I don't really want to imply that the two may be related. And it's really difficult to say year over year what the needs are going to be. But it's especially interesting to pay attention to, in years where there's legislative sessions or things like that, where they're proposing tax cuts, and then how does that affect local jurisdictions and their ability to collect.
So January 1st, this entity sets the value and then they send out a notice when the protest period opens. How long is the protest period?
Yeah, so it's going to vary by jurisdiction, and by jurisdiction I mean state. We cover several states here at Onwell, but I'll reference Texas just to keep it very simple. So notices will be released probably about early April. And then what the law says is you have 30 days from the date on the notice or May 15th, whichever is later. That is your period to protest or raise your concern. And then you file that with the local appraisal review board. And once you do that, it opens up your protest. You can go and talk informally with an appraiser and try and resolve the value that way. And then if you're unsuccessful, then it will be scheduled for a more formal hearing, which is known as the appraisal review board. It may be called the Board of Equalization in other states. And this is a more formal, quasi judicial, it feels more courtroom setting than your informal period. And so you may be talking to three appointed board members or, three experts who are going to listen to the facts of the case and then determine the value. And then depending on which state you're in, you have the ability to escalate, meaning you can file arbitration, binding arbitration, or you can file litigation to pursue what's called like your post-administrative relief. And so there's definitely a lot of opportunities out there available to try and get a value reduction, if especially if you're willing to go that distance, right? Like if it comes down to litigation, it doesn't make sense to file, so on and so forth. And it just comes down to the facts of the case. And obviously, each one of them have their own fees incorporated and things like that. So all things to consider when protesting. But generally speaking, most folks can resolve their protest, either in the informal or the formal period.
Well, that is an interesting process. And from my research, seems like on average your clients can save around 1,000 or $1,100.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, we're successful over 85% of the time. And I think the true measure here is what our customers have to say about us. You can Google any company and just look at their reviews, but you Google Onwell, and we have over 3,000 reviews, on average 4.7 stars. And so they really are the true North Star in determining the quality of service that they're receiving. And so I think that says a lot about a company. And I'm really actually glad and relieved to hear that our customers are really interested and committed in what we're doing as a company.
Yeah, well, 100%. The process that you laid out for going through this appeal, it makes sense, but it sounds like that takes up that, like, if I were to do that on my own, there's just probably no way I'm going to do that because I'm not going to, it sounds like it takes a lot of time. So I understand why somebody would work with a company like yours. How do you make money?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Sorry, it looks like it cut out there for a second, but it does take a lot of time. And when I was kind of thinking through everything that is important that I would mention, it's like not only is it time consuming, it can be tedious. The process can be Byzantine, right? It involves a lot of administrative legwork and things like that. And obviously, like, there's incentive on the county side to make the process as simplistic as possible, right? Because you don't want folks coming back with questions and a million phone calls, but not all counties adopt that philosophy, right? And so, like, for me, the way that I think about it is time is our most important asset, and we're not going to get that back. And so I don't ever assume that anyone can afford to take a day off. It's not just a day off, right? You're talking about the difference in a day and a paycheck. And so that's really like what the benefits of having companies like Onwell out there is. It's full service, end to end. You sign up, we ask you a couple of questions, you give us what you want to give us for the case, and then we'll take it from there. You sit back and essentially, wait till the results happen. And it's a very forward thinking you know company, and the notifications and your status updates are kept current. And so, like, you never really feel like you're in the dark about where you're at in the process.
Which is certainly a valuable thing. And, it's interesting to hear that there are some counties that are interested in being a good partner and a good conversation partner. But I could
Yeah.
also see some that just throw up a brick wall because they're not interested in collecting any less revenue than they're already collecting. So I'm sure that that cuts every single way.
Yeah.
So I think you mentioned that you were successful around 80% of the time, getting some kind of a reduction.
Yeah, 86% to be precise.
Okay, excellent. Which is really good. Um, and is that just because is that simply well, why are you successful? Is it because people's property values are not going up as much as the county or the municipality thinks?
I think it's there's a couple factors at play here. That being one of them, which is a good place to start. And so essentially what counties are tasked with doing is assigning the value, right? But within each of their, political boundaries, they have maybe hundreds of thousands of parcels in there that they have to assign value to. And so what they do is use this concept of mass appraisal, right? Which is good for speed and making those deadlines, but not necessarily good for capturing the property's quirks or the nuances and things like that, which is why it's which kind of like underscores the importance of protesting, right? To just open the case up and see what data was used, what they are classifying your property as, et cetera. So essentially what mass appraisal does is it allows counties to efficiently set taxable values for thousands of properties each year. Um, Obviously, there is limitations here, right? They use generalized data. It may not always reflect the unique characteristics or the condition of each individual property. And so thus we get into the protest season and then open up that time for information giving and exchanges and things like that. So that way the records can be correct. And, like, markets are cyclical in nature, and so that's the other piece that plays into this, right? It's like values, well, historically over long periods of time they will appear to go up, but there are booms and busts in the meantime, and so your value year over year may go up, it may go down, stay the same. And so it's really important just to keep a pulse on that and understand like whether or not it makes sense to protest given the jurisdiction that you're in. The other thing that I'll say about the success rate and about what really sets Onwell apart from others is that I mentioned we're a forward-thinking company. We are a tech company first and a real estate company second, and so that's just a part of the industry that we saw that was really ripe for this disruption. I came from a previous competitor, and a lot of the things that we were doing were very time consuming and manual labor, and there it kind of just begs the question, like, what can we do better here? What can we automate? What can we leverage this new tech to like help us be more efficient? And so that's essentially what we've done here. So we pair local experts with modern tech and AI to ensure that we're using the best data for your case. And doing so allows us to operate at the level of efficiency that's essential for delivering high quality results to hundreds of thousands of customers. And so, again, I'll go back to the customer reviews. The results speak for themselves, but we wouldn't be able to service that many folks if we weren't running an efficient operation. And so it's just being mindful, embracing the changes to tech. And the very last piece that I'll mention here is that, our local experts, we employ folks that are local to the jurisdictions that they serve. So if you're working in Houston, you live in Houston, Austin, et cetera. And I'm proud to say that our team has a combined experience of over 500 years, right? That's experience in appraisal, that's experience in working at the appraisal district and being a consultant, and local realtors, of course. And so having that amount of experience combined with powerful tech really just sets the stage up for these high quality results that we're delivering.
It makes a ton of sense. In order to navigate that process that you laid out at the beginning, you need to have all your ducks in a row, so to speak.
Totally.
Um, just to close the loop on how y'all make money, it's my understanding that whatever you save in for the property tax year 2025, if I save $1,000, your fee is 25% of that, so $250. Is that correct?
If your estimated tax savings is $1,000, yeah, the 25% would apply to that, which would mean the fee of $250.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And what is the timeline for I come to you, I say, hey Sam, I just got my property tax notice. I want to appeal this. How much time do we need to have? How much time do you need to have to actually go through with it?
Customers can essentially sign up within minutes. And so I would say it's better to sign up than not. And we don't really need a lot of time, but once you receive the notice, obviously the timer starts counting. And so best to just once you receive the notice, or even if you're in the middle of the season or it's not in the season at all, like you can still sign up with Onwell, and we will make sure that come the next protest period that you're ready to go, you're squared away. And so rest assured, we'll get it filed for you with the proper authorization. And so really you could sign up at any time, but once you get that notice and start to ask yourself these questions of, does it make sense for me to appeal? That's about the time that you would want to engage a representative like Onwell to represent you on your behalf.
Now I'm remembering something else. For the majority of states, there's not a downside or a risk of appealing, but sometimes there is.
Yeah, that's correct. So I'll use Texas and Washington here as an example. And there are two really good examples, actually. So Texas, the burden of proof is on the appraisal district when they determine the value. And also, as an extension of that, when you protest, the value can't be raised as the result of a protest. So Texas is like a very low to no risk market to protest in. And then when you make your way over to Washington, the burden of proof is actually on the protesting party, so the homeowner or the agent. So there's a naturally a higher level of scrutiny applied there. And we don't just obviously we're going to review the case before we file to make sure that there are no negative implications that could result from filing. And so rest assured, we understand the nuances within these territories. And if it comes down to, evaluating the property and then saying, hey, we actually don't recommend that you file this year because it's undervalued based on what we see, then we'll communicate that to the customer. But just being transparent like that and putting that due diligence up front, I'm sure puts a lot of comfort and ease in folks to make sure that they're not at risk for a higher tax bill at the end of it.
Yeah, well, I think that that's great. And that might be a perfect microcosm for the difference between Washington State and Texas, but that's a story for another day, Sam. But what I know for sure is, sir, we're ready for that difference making tip. What do you have for us?
The difference making tip. Um, I would just like to say that, you know, the property tax bills arguably are, one of the most important things in your finances that can easily be overlooked. Um, a home is, for most folks, the single largest investment that they would ever make, right? And so you want to feel empowered and confident to manage that investment responsibly, whether you do it yourself or whether you engage an agent to do it. The bottom line is there is tons of resources available out there. Even if you start at Onwell or go off somewhere else and find the materials that you need to be successful, my job is to get folks out there and understand their rights and make them feel empowered and confident in the protest process. And at the very least, I'm happy to be a resource. I can share my LinkedIn with you, my information, and that's ultimately like what I'm looking to achieve here. But yeah, the bottom line is empowerment, is confidence, and it plays into this theme of obviously saving folks money and planning for the future. So.
Well, I think that that is great stuff. That definitely gets it. Come on. Sam, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they get involved with Ownwell?
Yeah, so you can go to ownwell.com, ownwell.com. The sign up process, you can be done within minutes. If you're not within a geography that we currently serve, it'll let you know. Um, and then, that's also a conversation for another day. But there is a variety of tools that are available on the Ownwell site to help folks feel empowered about, managing their investment. And in terms of how to reach me, you can find my information on the website under one of the experts, or you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Sam Sosa, spelled just like the baseball player. Feel free to add me, connect with me. I'll share this podcast on my LinkedIn and just really encourage folks to get out there and get active.
Love it. Well, if you enjoyed this much as I did, show Sam your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to ownwell.com. And it's really easy to use the website. I was on there earlier today. So super intuitive. Plug your information in there. I really see no downside at all. And then connect with Sam on LinkedIn. And I will certainly list all of those in the notes of the show. Thanks again, Sam.
George, thanks so much.
Finally, friendly reminder, there's never going to be anybody more interested in your financial success than you are. So act accordingly.